My teacher failed me for cheating on every test, so I had my lawyer father sit in on our final exam. Mrs. Patterson hated me from the first day of junior year. I don't know why. I was quiet, turned in my work, never caused problems, but something about me set her off. In September, I got a perfect score on our first chemistry test. She pulled me aside after class. I know you cheated. I didn't cheat, Mrs. Patterson. Then explain how you got every single question correct. Because I studied? She leaned closer. I'm watching you. Next time you cheat, I'll prove it. I hadn't cheated. I'd spent hours studying, but she was convinced. The second test came in October. I scored a 98%. She failed me anyway. Wrote academic dishonesty across the top in red ink. I went to the principal, showed him my test. All my answers were correct. Mrs. Patterson says your work is too perfect. That's suspicious. So I'm being punished for doing well? The principal shrugged. I trust Mrs. Patterson's judgment. If she says you cheated, you probably did. My parents hired a tutor to help me study even harder. Maybe if I could show my work more clearly, Mrs. Patterson would have to believe me. Third test in November. I showed every step of every calculation. Included notes explaining my reasoning. Score, 100%. Mrs. Patterson's grade, 0. Cheating again, she wrote. I started recording her class lectures on my phone, studied the recordings every night, made flashcards, took practice tests online. Fourth test in December. Perfect score. She failed me. Again. My dad is a lawyer. He'd been quiet up until now, letting me try to handle it myself. But after the fourth failed test, he'd had enough. This is harassment, he told me. She's targeting you specifically. We're going to fix this. He called the school. Demanded a meeting with Mrs. Patterson, the principal, and the superintendent. They met on a Friday. My dad brought all 4 of my tests. Every single one had perfect scores that Mrs. Patterson had overridden with zeros. These tests show my son has mastered the material, my dad said. Yet he's failing your class. Why? Mrs. Patterson folded her arms. Because he's cheating. I can tell. Can you prove it? I don't need to prove it. I know. Actually, you do need to prove it. That's how accusations work. The superintendent asked Mrs. Patterson if she'd ever caught me with cheat sheets, or looking at another student's test, or using my phone. No, but so you have no evidence. The perfection is the evidence. No student gets perfect scores, my dad smiled. My son does, because he studies. What you're doing is called discrimination. The superintendent shifted uncomfortably. What do you want? I want you to watch my son take the final exam. He'll take it alone in a room with supervision. No study materials, no phone, just him, a pencil, and the test. When he gets a perfect score, you'll admit you were wrong. Mrs. Patterson's face turned red. Fine, but when he fails, I want a formal apology from both of you for wasting my time. Deal, my dad said. The final exam was scheduled for a Wednesday. They put me in an empty classroom with just a desk, the test, and a pencil. Mrs. Patterson, the principal, and my dad all sat in chairs along the back wall watching. The test was hard. 2 hours long. 50 questions covering everything we'd learned all year. I worked through every problem methodically, showed my calculations, double-checked my answers. When I finished, I handed it to Mrs. Patterson. She graded it right there with everyone watching, question after question. Her face got paler with each correct answer. Finally, she set down her pen. 100%, she said quietly. The principal looked at my dad. I apologize. This shouldn't have happened. My dad stood up. It shouldn't have, but it did. 4 times. What are you going to do about it? The superintendent spoke up. We'll change all 4 test grades to reflect the actual scores. Your son will receive an A+ in the class, and Mrs. Patterson will face disciplinary action. Mrs. Patterson stood up fast, her chair scraping the floor. This is ridiculous. He probably memorized. Enough, the superintendent said. You've made accusations you couldn't prove for an entire semester. That's unacceptable. Mrs. Patterson grabbed her bag and walked out. I never saw her again. Turned out she'd been doing this to other students too. Students who didn't have lawyer parents who could fight back. The school board forced her to retire at the end of the year. I got my A+, but more importantly, the next year the school implemented a new policy. Anytime a teacher accused a student of cheating, they needed actual evidence. No more failing students based on suspicion.